first dinosaurs were actually found in Britain, one or two of them on the Isle of Wight itself, and the academics then searched worldwide, and they've now been found in every continent, so they've more or less forgotten about the UK dinosaurs. A lot of people think they've all been found, of course they haven't. And the beauty is there's this untapped source of material on the seabed. Not only is there new material out there, but there could be parts of old dinosaurs. Now there's also, which interests me particularly, there's a lot of material which is still in situ, and the nice thing is you can look down on it, it's horizontal, you can see the dinosaur in place, photograph it, map it, and then excavate it underwater, which has never been done. A dinosaur that died could have died anywhere. There isn't such thing as a dinosaur bed with remains in here. They could be anywhere. So a corpse that just was covered in red clay could suddenly become exposed here. Yeah, it's looking good. Well, the tide's gone up and it's taken all the sand away. So you get a storm like that, it'll go right up to the cliff, strip away the covering and leave all the hard rocks and the coins for that matter. A lot of beachcombers come here, the metal and coins. Anything heavy goes right down to the bedrock. Now on this site we've got a sandstone with foot casts in. Foot cast is the opposite of a footprint. You imagine a situation where you have the print. In sand, that will solidify and form a sandstone print, a negative. If it was in clay, the sand that comes over it will be that much harder, so as it turns over when it's eroded, you'll get a natural cast, if you like, a replica of the foot, which is what this is. This is an iguanodon foot cast. It shows you how big the animal was. You can clearly see the 3 toes there. There's only about 8 of these showing today. They're quite rare. We leave them here so that we can show people on the guided tours. But ultimately they should be preserved because they're fragile. But there'll be hundreds offshore because they wash east with a lot and go right round this point. Even boulders that size will move. Well, as a child I got interested in collecting fossils, and you move from one thing to another, shells onto other fossils. Eventually you get interested in dinosaurs. Now the reason I'm here is because the Isle of Wight is the most famous place in Europe to collect fossils, but it was the first place really they were found, dinosaurs. And this is the place they're found simply because the rocks crop out here and nowhere else. They're just jutting out on the coast and they get eroded by the sea. So the sea does all the work for you. It actually erodes the dinosaurs out and they fall onto the beach. We're going to get a lot of rolled material. By rolled I mean it's been on the seabed a long time. We're going to get isolated limbs, lots of loose material, but for every 100 pieces we're going to get 1 or 2 rarities, bits of claw, teeth. The ultimate aim is to find something in situ, in place on the seabed, that we can actually dig out. And I suppose to find a new species would be nice, but that's going to take some doing. This is the last dinosaur that was found on the Isle of Wight, the complete one, or relatively complete, Polycanthus. There's only 4 in the world, this is the most complete. We started at the tail, as it happened. We've dug all of the spinal cord, all the spinal column rather, and the limbs. And when we got to the neck, nothing, so there was no head. Now we assume that when the landslip occurred, the head, if it was there, was washed away. Polycanthus is a very rare dinosaur. It didn't live in herds, we think. It's also, it's similar to Stegosaurus and all those armoured dinosaurs, but it's at a period of time when they were evolving into lots of different families, and it's very important to find out, for instance, what the end of the tail, the very end of the tail looked like, and the skull, because it tells you a lot about the evolution of this sort of dinosaur. I've been collecting fossils now for 20-30 years. I started at the usual age, maybe 7 or 8, went to Lyme Regis, and then I came to the Isle of Wight because this is the place to look. Although a lot of academics aren't interested in the Isle of Wight anymore because they're doing trips to South America, wherever, the island still has a lot to offer, and particularly with this new area we're opening up about offshore hunting, a lot of people are very interested in it and coming on board with this because they know the material's there. We've proved it's there. It's just a question of organising the people and getting the right conditions at the right time. It'd be nice to find a dinosaur in situ, in clay or in sandstone, and dig it out. You could argue it'd be nice to leave it there, but it will be gradually eroded anyway. These things don't last forever. Once they're exposed to the elements, they only last a few hundred years. So that's another problem. When we bring this material to the surface, it'll all have to be soaked, preserved, catalogued, And then what I'd like to do is get all the collectors together and all the museums and compare notes and see if we can match up individual bones to previous skeletons that have been found. I think we've seen by now the potential. I've shown you what's coming out of the cliffs and the rate is coming out of the cliffs, what's been found on the beach, but I think you can see that 99.9% of the material is still just in this shallow water offshore. The reason no one's ever found it before is very simple. That water, for 9/10 of the year, is too murky. It's very shallow, it's easy to dive, and the other problem is the people that have dived out there weren't looking for the bones, they were looking for shipwrecks. I think now we've realised that there are certain areas where these gullies occur, these ridges, where the material's piled in and it's never moved. It is literally a time capsule from the Cretaceous period. I think if we do this properly over the next 4 or 5 years, we'll treble the amount of material that's already in museums. We're going to start off relatively shallow diving. I think if we find anything in situ, we need to bring in dredging, more material to get rid of the sand. Submersibles even, that's an ambition of mine, to get right out there in the deep water. Don't forget we've got an area equivalent to the size of the Isle of Wight, again, offshore, that we can look in. It's very laborious. The 12 collectors that are out there, they're spending their lifetime finding these bits and pieces. It'd be nice to just do it in one fell swoop.